Is that right?
Looks like it so far.
Okay. Well, we'll wait to at least have 3 on here so we have a quorum.
It's no problem. We're not in a big hurry.
All right. I appreciate your time uh, here and welcome to our virtual room.
Eric did stop by the office today, so we're sure he will be on. And so
I
And
hope
just
everybody 5 and
just
not
let
6.
Nicole in.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, then it is 5 o'clock right now. And if everybody is ready to go, I'm going to call the meeting to order. And how do we feel about the flag salute? Does anybody?
I didn't put it on the agenda because I don't know if anybody has flags.
Oh, yeah. I do. However, I'm going to go ahead and skip that one because we are in the in here, not in any disrespect to our country, but respect to our meeting here, and everybody's sitting in their chairs. And so I'm calling the meeting to order right now at 5 o'clock, and I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as written.
Awesome. Welcome, Eric. And any discussion? Not hearing any. We're going to go ahead and say that, everybody for it, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye as well. And I'm going to go ahead and I think I heard all of you in there saying that. So that passes. And I'm going to turn this over. I'm just going to turn it right over to Ray and Associates right now and mute myself.
Well, thank you very much. Good evening, President Kreutzer, members of the board, Superintendent Rosenbach. We're very excited to be here with you and get this process started. Richard and I and Lee are very passionate about helping school districts find their new superintendents, and we know it's a big position. We know it's an important position, and it's an exciting process for school district to go through. So we're looking forward to this whole thing. And so we go to the next slide. Not sure who's advancing. Is it Jackie? Okay, Jackie's going to do that. So you have met our team, but just to reintroduce ourselves, Libra cannot be here with us tonight. She is on her way back from Switzerland. I think she may be touching down right about now, and we gave her an excused absence, but she will be available going forward, and she's a very valuable member of our team. Another person is Dr. David Faltes. We mentioned him last time. He is the Managing Director of Leadership Acquisitions, and he actually is based in Texas. He kind of works on superintendent searches nationwide, mostly in west of the Mississippi, but he is a very valuable resource to us, and he will help with recruitment of candidates on a national basis, as well as vetting and all that kind of stuff. So if he is needed in a pinch, he can show up in person, but probably won't be seeing him in person. But anyway, he's an important member of our team working behind the scenes, as well as our 2 full-time people in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. So we're used to this virtual world, and we're happy to be here doing that with you tonight. And I will just turn it over to Richard right now.
Thank you, Steve. Well, good evening, President Kreutzer, members of the board, and Superintendent Rosenbach. Thank you again for entrusting us with planning this really important search. So tonight, we aim to accomplish the 7th superintendent search. I'd first like to confirm the designated contacts within the district. Information on the screen, correct?
Yes.
Are thinking and also making sure follows a broader stakeholder engagement process. And here's where we start to develop the profile for the ideal candidate for North Mason. We move on to stage 3, which is the active recruitment and screening of applications. Finally, in stage 4, we narrow down the top candidates. And then in stage 5, we focus on the selection and the contracting of the finalist. So we were at each stage, and this is really important, I think, is that we review and we stop and reflect to make sure that all of the board's preferences are integrated, that we're in alignment before we move on to the next stage. And if there's any adjustments that need to be made, then we make sure we create a space for that.
Okay, thank you, Richard. As you know, those 5 stages go fast. And, really, in a blink of an eye, it seems like. So it's important to have that timeline nailed down. We'll be talking more about that. Also, as we go through tonight, please jump in with questions. It's easier than watching the chat. So just jump in if you have a question. I'm happy to clarify. One thing also, just that's an important part of the timeline, although it's not really listed there, and that is that we recommend that we have a weekly phone call, or it could be a Zoom, with the board contact person. So if that's going to be Eric, it sounds like it is, that's wonderful. I'd like to contact Eric, after this meeting, set up a time when we could talk weekly, probably about a 10-15-minute meeting, just to make sure we got all the bases covered, because as you know, there's a lot of details to this process. We want to make sure that we're moving everything along with timely information. So I'll be reaching out to Eric on that issue, and we'll get that going, because we think that's an important part of the timeline, keeping the timeline on track and good communication as well.
And
So-
we may wind up, Steve, we may wind up inserting somebody else in if I become unavailable. Just be aware that we may have somebody else fill in within that if that need arises.
Yes, and that's fine. It's pretty common to have a backup board member or contact person, so no problem there. So as Richard said, we want to this down to one page. You probably remember seeing that in your RFP proposal. But we want to make sure that these dates are okay with you and you're comfortable with them. I think we can probably nail down, ideally, 80 to 90% of these dates tonight. I realize that we may have to do a little check-in and come back and revisit. But we do want to finalize this timeline as soon as possible. But it is suggested. I mean, Richard kind of hinted at this. We know this is the board search. So we want to make sure we're responsive to your needs. And this is kind of the first step in that process. So anyway, stage 1 is the board input and preparation stage. And just an example of how fast things go, by the end of the evening, we'll be in stage 2. So, that's just how fast this process goes. And so as you can see, we're having our first meeting tonight on November 6th. And then starting tomorrow, we hope that the promotional flyer is being prepared. And I know we've done it a couple different ways. If you are comfortable with your staff, Jackie, or other people that are on your staff doing that, it's fine. A lot of districts like to take ownership of that. Kathy Schoenfelder at our office is also quite good at it. She's a good resource. She'd be happy to do the whole thing for you if you are too busy to do it. But it sounds like you're prepared to move forward in that. Is that correct?
Yes, she sent me a lot of samples, and we have our communication specialist, Amanda, working on them. So she just was waiting for after this meeting for a couple little bullet points to put on there, and then it should be ready to go.
Yeah, as you can imagine, we just like to have a promotional piece that we can attach to the application when it's time to open it up to applicants, so they can be sold on why North Mason. And so that's an important thing. Another option would be maybe a PowerPoint slide deck or even a video. I'll give you some examples as we go on, just in case you want to look at those. But a brochure, just a traditional front and back brochure, could be, 3 or 4 pages front and back, however you want to do that. As a PDF, that's a very handy thing to share. In the old days, that used to be a hard copy if we take it to meetings, but now it's all electronic. It's easy to post that PDF along with the application. So anyway, it sounds like that the wheels are moving on that. So tomorrow, after this meeting, we'll have a timeline, and we will begin informing our associates nationwide. And what I always do is I always post it on my LinkedIn. And I say, this job is coming, and applications will be available soon. And I have like 500 contacts on LinkedIn all over the West Coast, that have a ton of them in Washington State. And I guarantee By the end of tomorrow, I'll get some contacts from people that say, hey, I'm interested in this job. Can you give me a little information? Or at least when you get closer, give me a little information. So we get the word out as fast as we can, both statewide and nationwide. So that's always fun to get that going. And then on November 8th, we want you all to begin working on stakeholder meetings. So as you know, as you remember from our proposal, stakeholder input is a huge part of our process. There's two main ways we do that. One way is our constituent stakeholder groups. And we would like you to identify which groups you'd like us to meet with. And we typically meet for a 50-minute, 55-minute session with them. We can do it in person, 100% in person. We can do it 100% virtual, or we can do some combination. In fact, I've done searches where we were in person in the room, with a video camera recording for people that don't want to be in the room. So there's multiple ways we can do that, but we have a standard set of questions we take each group through, and it's a great way to get feedback from stakeholders. So typically there's an elementary teacher group, middle school teacher group, high school teacher group, there's administrators, there's central office, there's parents, there's community, there might be downtown people, community leaders. You want groups that you want. We've done as many as 19, 20 groups over a 2-day period. You can be thinking about how you want to structure that. I'm happy to help you. Richard's happy to help you. I'm happy to be the main contact. So if you have questions about what those groups would look like, please let me know. Kathy's very helpful, and we'll come back and show you some sample schedules here pretty soon. But that's a wonderful way to get feedback from your stakeholder groups as you begin to develop the ideal candidate profile. So we're going to talk more about that.
Really quick, I thought I saw Director Bull's hand up, but maybe she had a question.
I did have a question about the LinkedIn, if that post would be coming from you, Steve Chestnut, like your personal LinkedIn account, or Ray and Associates LinkedIn account, just to look for it and share it out.
It comes from my personal, yes.
Okay.
So if you follow me, you can, if you put in a request, I'll say yes, and then you can post it, right?
I will look for you.
I should be there. I hope I am.
Hey guys, I'm sorry, but I hit the record button, but it doesn't look like it's recording, so I'm gonna try it again.
Recording in progress.
Sorry to interrupt.
Well, no problem. It sounds like it's recording now, so that's good. So anyway, my point is, if you all could be thinking about what groups you would like, identify them, and then of course, we want to have those group sessions coming up in the near future. So you're going to need to get the word out quickly so people can get this on their calendar. And so then we can talk more about what that looks like a little bit later in this presentation. But that's a very, very important part of the process. So be thinking about which groups you want and who should be included in that group, in those groups. I also forgot to mention, we always recommend that you include students. They could be middle school on up, 6th grade on up. Our wonderful feedback. It's good to get them involved, but we enjoy doing those as well. So anyway, I know you've probably got some ideas on that, and that should be up and running. Any other questions on that slide, stage 1? Yes, Arla, I see that. Yeah. You're muted though.
Find my mute. Yeah. I apologize. I came in a little bit late, so I don't know if you touched on this, but the individual board member interviews, is that being scheduled today for future?
We won't schedule it tonight, but I know that Kathy's been gathering the board information, I believe. And so Richard and I and Libra will reach out to each of you. We'll schedule that time. And it's just a phone call, and usually takes 20, 25 minutes, but it's our opportunity to get to know you a little bit. It's strictly confidential between you and us. The only people that see this report is the 3 consultants, and it just gives us a feel for where the board's coming from. It's very helpful to us. Jackie, did you have something?
Yes, I was just going to let them know that I gave Kathy all of your cell phone numbers and your email addresses. So be looking in your email and for a phone call.
Yeah, once I
Okay.
once I get that information, I know I will reach out on email and say, hey, let's schedule the time, and we'll divide those up between myself, Richard, and Libra. Okay, any other questions on stage 1? Okay, see, we're already at stage 2. So we want to open the online survey link ideally by the 8th. And so this is the second major way that we gather stakeholder input. And these surveys are generally very well received. So it's a 31 characteristic survey. It's based on research-based characteristics of successful superintendents. And it asks each person to identify what are your top 10. Now they're all important, they're all good, but there are multiple ways to be an effective superintendent. And so what you will ask is for people to fill this out. And so you're going to, first of all, we send a special link to board members. We want to get the 5 board members, their opinion. The rest of the survey is pretty generic, and each person that takes it has to indicate which group they identify with. Are they parents? Are they teachers? Are they administration? Are they community members? And so at the end of the process, when the survey closes, you will get a summary by group. So you'll be able to see how each group that participates in the survey feels about the characteristics for the new superintendent. There's also a spot for comments, and people often fill up comments, fill up that section. So there's interesting comments to look at. It's a good dipstick. It's a good test of what different stakeholders believe is needed in the new superintendent. So that's the second major way. And this is another tool we use to help you determine. You have to make the final decision on what is the ideal candidate profile. You need to identify, and we'll do that at I think it's our next in-person meeting. You will identify what are the top 10 or 12 that we are looking for in our new superintendent. And that becomes a wonderful tool for candidates as they look at your district and they say, do I have these skills? And it's a great way for us as consultants and you as the board to screen the application and decide, does this person meet our criteria? And so it's a very important tool, very helpful process, and we're looking forward to get that started. Typically, it's advertised on your homepage. It's important, obviously, to send out an email blast or other methods of communication, however you all do it in your district, to encourage people to take this survey. So that's a big deal. So then we have suggested the dates of November 18 and 19 for meetings with those stakeholder groups. So that's coming right up, and that's why getting these groups identified and getting the publicity out as soon as possible is so important, because that's coming right up, right? So I guess my first question is, I assume you want those meetings to be in person, is that correct?
I would like to see them in person. I don't know what Leanna or Arla, Nick.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly.
And I think, yeah, Steve, I think we'd like to see them broken up in a couple days, because I think we've got quite a few folks. We definitely will want a Spanish speaking portion broken out with that part of our community. And we can have Mateo be part of that conversation to help with that.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, 2 days usually works well. That's our typical format. I know that there are some conflicts with scheduling. I believe that Libra is available the 18th and the 19th, both days. I believe Richard is only available on the 19th. Is that correct, Richard?
Yeah, I'm at a conference out of state until the 18th, but I will be here on the 19th. Yeah.
Okay.
And of course, I live full-time in Arizona. If you want to pay my travel, I'm happy to be there, but I'm confident that we could probably divide up these groups for Richard and Libra to get them done over that 2-day period.
Steve, we did discuss to have our Hispanic families having it only the Hispanic families, that they would be more comfortable coming in and doing that meeting and not having a big group meeting. If that makes sense.
It does. I think that's your call. Sure.
Yeah, happy to support that. The only limitation on that would, if we could make maybe that on the 19th, since I'm there. But yeah, whatever format you like, we can certainly do that.
So would there be any virtual sessions at all?
Is it possible to have a virtual component to each of them? So if people can't make it in person, they can get on the Zoom?
Yes, we've done that before. yeah, depending on your technology, a lot of boardrooms or conference rooms are set up that way so that, you know, you can just broadcast that live session. If you can do that, that's wonderful.
If I may, I'm sorry, I'm trying to stay really quiet, but that does not work well in our boardroom. Having multiple people on Zoom in a meeting that's also in person has not been very successful
Sure.
in our boardroom.
And I guess
Yeah,
since
So we're probably not going to have virtual, is that correct?
I mean, so let's, can we tackle it this way? Can we have just a separate session virtual? If just have like on the tail end on the 19th, you know, maybe in there of like, hey, anybody that was unavailable, right, have kind of a different breakout session for that. Is that possible?
Yeah, that's recommendation would be to just get that on the schedule, just like a regular meeting, publicize it, you know, and yes, that's not a problem. I would probably facilitate that and done that many times, and they're usually very, very productive.
Yeah, that would
Can I-
work much better than trying to hybrid it.
Sure. Can I ask a process question, Steve? Are these meetings and nailing them down something you need us to take the lead on, or, you know, to do these next steps?
Yes, we do need you to take a lead on this because you need to identify how many you want. You need to identify who's in those groups, and you're going to need to send out the invitations to those people that you want to attend those meetings. So we depend on you for that. Yes, so we're looking for you to get that schedule and get that done.
So Arla and the rest of the board, kind of, you know, thoughts that comes into my head is having Jackie kind of lead that effort, but us to come up with the different groups that we want to see identified. One of the groups, as far as the community members, kind of one of the thoughts going through my head was everyone that has been to any of our community group sessions, you know, anything to do with the school in general, is having them kind of in a group and making sure they get the survey and are invited to, you know, one of those community sessions. You know, maybe having the admin, you know, elementary teachers, middle school teachers, high school teachers, you know, kind of a teacher group, building administrator group, Dana staff, you know, group, just to kind of cover it. I'm trying to think if there anything else, Jackie, you think that needed, or anybody else on the board? Any other ideas?
No, I love the fact of having all the board members send me community groups, community leaders that they want to see in, and then giving me times that they're available, giving me how many that they're thinking that would be appropriate. And
Jackie, I'm on my way home driving. Would you mind actually making that request in an email for us? I don't know that I can remember all of that. I'm sorry.
yeah, will do.
Thank you so much.
And we have a couple slides coming up that show some sample schedules. So there's several different ways you can do it, but it sounds like we're all on the right track here. You're going to start working on that since those meetings are coming up pretty quickly. So I'm just going to keep moving down the stage 2 timeline there. That same day on November 22nd, we hope that Jackie has finished the promotional flyer so that we can review it and give us time to look at that. And then on the 25th of November, that would be our next meeting in person or via Zoom. We're happy to do it either way. To finalize the superintendent profile, the ideal candidate profile, also to approve the application, but we'll ask the board to make the final decision on that. So you'll have a cross-tabulated summary of the survey, and you'll have a report on the stakeholder feedback, and then you have to decide what are the top 10 or 12 characteristics we're looking for in that new superintendent. So that's a fun meeting, and it's something that we'll be having this month. Any questions on stage 2?
I think that last meeting, it's great. It coincides with our board meeting. I don't know if that was intentional. I have a question just about, so promotional flyer video draft due. That means what you guys have created will send it to us by that time.
Jackie
For
said
other
she's going to, yeah, Jackie said she's going to do that flyer.
Okay.
It doesn't
That's
have to be
okay.
a-
The other way around.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
That's the one that
And-
Amanda's doing, Arla.
Okay. Gotcha. Okay. So are you guys coming to our meeting, or you want to, that's what you're asking, whether that should be virtual or in person, that 25th?
Yeah, actually, I see that it's listed as virtual on this timeline, and that's fine with us. I don't know what your plan is.
So is that the only thing on that agenda, Steve, for that 25th would be just that? Or is there
Yes.
else? I mean, I would think virtual for that event probably would go, so we're not eating up some travel costs there.
That's a very easy
And is
meeting to
this-
do.
How much time do you need, Steve? Do we need to do a special meeting before our regular meeting, or just do it during our board meeting?
You know, it's up to you. Usually it's a study session, either before or after. So that's what I'd recommend.
Is everybody available to do it like starting at 5:30? Board members?
That's fine with me if that works for Eric and everyone.
Okay, what day is that? I'm sorry, which
Monday.
day?
It's the
board
same day
meeting.
as our board meeting.
Oh, the same as our board meeting. Okay, yeah.
Week after we get back, Leanna.
Monday, the 25th?
Yep.
And we're saying meet at 5:30?
Yes.
Yes, I can do that.
The board will be in the boardroom all together, and then we'll just have Steve and Richard and Libra Zoom in.
Yeah, that works great for us.
I mean, I think if there was something else, Steve, that we had on there that we were tagging on with that, but if we're just approving it, I think virtual would be just fine. Especially because we're going to see you guys the 18th and 19th. We'll probably
Yeah,
touch
I
base.
agree. I agree. Any other questions on stage 2? Okay, let's go to stage 3, suggested timeline. This is the recruiting and screening stage, very exciting part. So we will basically post all the stuff. So we'll have the promotional flyer, and the online application will be approved at that meeting the night before, and then it's officially open at that point. And so we post that on our website, and superintendent candidates that are in the job market, they know to look on our website and other search firm websites. That's the most common way to look. Also, there's some advertising we're going to want to do. We'll talk about that in a moment, but that would start going out at that time. And then, so that's when it's open, is on November 26th. And then the deadline would be January 5th, which is really nice timing because those candidates need that break time to talk to their families, to have some time to work on the application, get all those references in and that kind of thing. And so that's good timing there. And just that note that's on that slide is important. And, you know, we do have a January 5th deadline, but we try to use good judgment. If somebody gives us an application shortly after the deadline and they can, you know, still get it to you in a timely manner, then we're going to accept it. But, you know, we try to have good judgment in that area as well. Any questions on stage 3?
No.
Okay. Moving on to stage 4, which is candidate presentation. So on January 15th, we're recommending that's when we have our meeting to not only finalize interview questions, but most importantly, we will present to you who we believe are the top 10 or 12 candidates based on the ideal candidate profile, the requirements for the position, our reference checks. We do a phone interview with each candidate. We call references that are not on their list. We do an internet search to make sure that their successes are verified and there's no problems that they have left out. And we will bring you our top 12, 10 or 12. However, you will have access to all the applications. We typically get 35, 45 applications for superintendent positions in the last year or two. And so you'll have access to all that stuff. And if you disagree with our recommendation, that's not a problem. We will be happy to consider them. The other piece of information that you'll have at that point is for those top candidates, you will get about a 10-minute Spark Hire video. That's the name of it. It's the name of the company that does it, Spark Hire. And we have about 4 questions. Gives you a little glimpse into their personality. So that's another good piece of information you'll have prior to that night to review and look it over. You'll get the information on all the candidates 3 or 4 days before, and you'll have a chance to look at that stuff. And then we will just have a session. It could be, well, it needs to be in person, I think, to work the best. And we will get by the end of the evening, we want to identify who we're going to interview in the first round. That's going to be up to you. The number could be 5, 6, 7 in the first round. But that is what we would recommend, is that we have that first round and that it be virtual. You're welcome to have that first round in person if you want, but on the week of January 20th, that's the suggested timeline. Virtual works really well, especially if you have out-of-state candidates. You don't have the travel costs. We've had great success with that. In fact, I can't think of a district in the last 4 years that I've worked with that has done first round in person. So that's what we recommend. And then we meet with you at the conclusion of that meeting, and we help you decide who do we want to bring back as finalists. We have a decision-making matrix. It's kind of a consensus building piece of, it's a tool. We kind of start the discussion there, and then we turn it over to you. We don't direct that conversation. This is your conversation. We're just there to assist, answer questions, and that kind of thing. But that's an exciting evening because we decide, after looking at those top candidates, who do we want to bring for finalists? Any questions on stage 4?
So what is the board's thought, everybody else's thought of that first round? Do we want to do those virtually for that first round of interviews? And that's kind of was one of my thoughts, but what does everybody else think?
Yeah, if that's what they're recommending, that is, I think, is what I'm hearing. I think that I would be fine with that first round. And like he's saying, that cuts the cost of bringing whoever does come from out of town, if they're going to come.
Arla, Nick, Nicole, you guys agree?
Yes, I think it'll make easier and open up some funds later for us to use to possibly meet in person later.
I agree for sure, especially with that many potential candidates.
I think I saw Eric or Nick put I concur.
Okay, sounds like first round's going to be virtual. That's great. Any other questions on stage 4? Okay, I'm not keeping up with the chat too well, so if there's something that I missed in the chat, please let me know.
I'm sorry, I thought that you could see our faces. So if you can't see everybody's face, then you don't see me nodding no. So I'll make sure to chime in.
I can see you, Leona, yeah. Richard, were you going to say something?
No, I was just saying, yeah, I got my eyes on the chat, so no worries there.
Oh, good, okay. Okay, next slide, stage 5. That's the selection stage, and that's the most fun part, of course. So we're recommending the week of January 27th, and you all need to be thinking about what kind of format you want to have. And it's very common to have a stakeholder input session, some kind of a forum where the finalists get a chance to speak. And typically when that happens, we provide a SurveyMonkey people that are participating then can fill that out. We can compile that extremely quickly and share that with the board, assuming that you are probably going to be making your decision later that same day. We'll give you a chance to look at that data, that feedback from your stakeholders that actually heard the candidates. So a couple different ways you can do that. It's often done in a one-day setting. Sometimes it's spread over 2 days. Sometimes I've seen districts bring a candidate in one day at a time. So that's something you want to be thinking about. But I guess the main thing I want to emphasize is, do you want stakeholder involvement as part of the final interviews?
Yes, I think, I really liked what we had heard when we first started this, of kind of an interview process that led the candidates through a day within the school district, and kind of brought them from when all the kids and the buses were leaving and all the way to, meeting with, having dinner with the board that evening. I don't know what everybody else's thought is on that, but kind of a 1 day per candidate type thing. What does everybody think?
Yeah, I like that a lot.
Sounds good.
Good over here.
It sounds like we're leaning towards 1 day per each candidate with stakeholder involvement, right?
Yep. That's what I'm hearing.
Okay. All right, that sounds good. And obviously that specific schedule, I assume, is going to include some tours and some, maybe a dinner, like you said, Eric, and the different things you're going to need to want to get that on the schedule. And, obviously it's a little ways out, but something you got to be thinking about and something to work on in the future. So we would plan to meet with you, and it could be virtually or it could be in person. If it's over a 3 day period, it might end up being virtually, but we would be there we have our consensus tool, kind of start that discussion, then we get out of the way. And obviously this is a board's decision on who the new superintendent is going to be. We want to help facilitate that discussion, but that's where you all are going to have to make your final decision. So that's always kind of exciting. And then the end of the timeline there just has a lot of TBD, because we know that there's usually some contract negotiation, often can take a week or two, and that kind of thing, but we'll help with the press release for the new superintendent and that kind of thing. So that process gets wrapped up within a couple of weeks after that final interview. Any other questions on stage 5? I think we have a timeline, so that's great. Thank you very much.
All right, thanks, Steve. Well, as normally happens when we're talking about the timeline, the presentation kind of takes an organic turn. So some of the things that you're going to see in these next few slides, we've already discussed. And so I'll just summarize, but please, if there's any questions or things that you want to bring up, by all means, let us know. So as kind of Steve mentioned, and you all kind of discussed, building the profile is a critical step in identifying the candidate who embodies the specific qualities that you're looking for in the next superintendent at North Mason. So through the stakeholder interviews, through the survey that we're going to talk about, we collect that data, we analyze it, and then we present it to the board in a way where you can see it by stakeholder and kind of overall. And we think that's really important. We know a lot of boards spend time with that because you're going to see some differences, right? Different stakeholder groups have different priorities. So you'll be able to see that and synthesize and weigh those options as we start moving forward with the application process and screening candidates. Next slide, please. So, and is it Jackie that's driving maybe? We do have some examples there of the profile, one for the school board and one for the community. If you click on it, it should take you to just an example. Might have to slide it over from another browser. But as she's pulling it up, so as Steve kind of alluded to earlier, this is 31 qualities where we're asking the stakeholder groups to identify their top 10. They don't prioritize the top 10, they just select the 10. But then we also synthesize that and kind of look for patterns and trends that we then share with the board. So you can kind of see, based on the survey that people are taking, what are they identifying as their top qualities, and that generates some discussion there that we also use for the screening process. The other question I guess that we have is about additional language. I know we in the chat there was a discussion earlier about could we have the survey in Spanish, and that's affirmative. Yes, we absolutely can have it in Spanish. But are there any other languages that we need to consider?
Ball, but
Yeah, we actually have 11 languages that are native languages in our district now, but with the exception of Cajaval, which is our Guatemalan community's primary language, and many of them speak Spanish as well. They are languages that are, you know, individual families. And many of those families also have some English. So I think if we have the Spanish opportunity, that will help us cover most of our community, if not all.
Noted. Okay, we can go on to the next slide, I think, then. So it's kind of Steve alluded to earlier, here's just a sample schedule. And one of the questions we really want to consider kind of on this slide really has to do with date, but also location. So it's common that the district office, the boardroom is kind of a place where these are held. But we also know that place matters. And so for some districts, you know, not necessarily having it at a school or a district site makes the most sense for lots of reasons. And sometimes it's split. Sometimes it does make sense for the staff stakeholder groups to be on site, maybe even the students. But when we shift over to family, community, sometimes it makes more sense for that to be in a place that's more relevant, more maybe welcoming to the community. So those are things that we just need to think about in terms of deciding when we're going to do the stakeholders, but also where we're going to do the stakeholder meetings.
So
any initial conversation about that?
Yeah, so people do like to come on campus, and we did do some conversation with our multilingual family advisory group, because that is, you know, a concern there too. But that family group said that they would definitely want to come to the boardroom to do that. So.
What about, I guess I'm curious, at previous school districts you've worked with, how large these stakeholder meetings have been. Because I was thinking we have our high school commons that we use, but then also we have our gym. Like if it's, you know, if we're thinking it's gonna be packed.
I'm trying to think, the last one we did in North Thurston, the biggest group we had was definitely the community group, but we were able to house that in the boardroom. I don't know, Steve, what would you say, about 25, 30 people for that one?
Yeah, maybe 35 was a decent showing, and I think there was a couple sessions that large.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't think we've ever had like capacity issues where, like, you know, we've had hundreds of people come and we weren't ready for that.
I like
have had-
Nick's comment in the chats about the theater. Do you know, Dan, if that's being used those days?
I don't believe it is being used that day. So if we had groups bigger than, you know, 30 or 40, we could go there.
So, Arla, are you envisioning, like, in that community group, I mean, do we want to go above 35, or would we want to split that up into maybe two separate groups? So we're keeping, right, if we had 50 people, maybe split it into two sessions of 25, just to make it a little smaller, a little more intimate, right, where people can kind of talk a little bit more. I mean, what do you think?
Would that be possible from Ray and Associates? Like, would they send two people to facilitate each group?
Well,
I'm
just talking about, like, hey, maybe we have it 4 to 5, right, as session 1, and
sure, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, just two set completely, like, not parallel, but more of, you know, session 1 and session 2.
Yeah, I think, I mean, we can start talking now, I guess, about the groups we were going to send to Jackie. I definitely think the teachers and staff, that's one that could just be in the boardroom during the day, Dana, or do you think that would, okay, it has to be
No, that would be an end of the day thing for them. But yeah, that could be in the boardroom. Students would be during the day, middle school and high school students. some community folks, like if we wanted the chamber board maybe, and include our local electeds. For Ray and Associates, we don't have an incorporated city, so we have county and state officials, but otherwise we're the government. So, but you know, we could gather their information that way. Those kinds of folks could be during the day. The admin groups could be during the day. And then, you know, I think for most of our families, night, after work hours, late afternoon and after work are best. I know certainly when we do a group with our Guatemalan families, they prefer evening hours. And on the second day, since Richard will be available, then we can plan on that for them.
Perfect.
I
And if you-
definitely would like to see like a 3 to 4 for our secondary staff and then a 4 to 5 for our elementary staff. So everybody has time to get there.
Okay. And this, what you have up on the screen, that's like a sample of a full day of stakeholder meetings.
Correct.
Okay, that's great, actually. Because I was thinking something smaller, more intimate, like in the lunchtime hour, if we were doing like elected officials or like kind of more dignitary type people, like fire chiefs or whatnot.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. I like that. Like what you're talking about, Arla. I think that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. A couple for teachers and then like a broader one, yeah, in the evening there for parents. And we have the 2 days you said. So Wednesday the 18th is also going to be an early release day. Yeah.
Oh,
The
that's
18th
good.
is a Monday.
Oh, I'm looking at the wrong month. I'm sorry. Oh shoot, I was looking at December. Okay, yeah, sorry. 18th, 19th are Monday, Tuesday.
And
Shoot.
those are early release days, or they're not early?
Not early release,
Okay.
no.
Okay, thank you.
Also, I was going to say, since Libra and Richard are both available on the 19th, you could have 2 sessions at the same time if you needed to make the schedule work.
Yeah, we'll just continue with the plan of we'll send Jackie ideas of people and groups and let her kind of build it out. We can give suggestions on times.
Will
Right.
we, I'm sorry. Is it will we be doing, when we have all of these, I don't think that like when we do one for parents and community, that one's kind of put out like, here it is, come to this and talk to us. But are we going to make sure that we have a specific invite to the other stakeholders that are more intimate, like the fire department? And are we going to ask that they send something back to say we are sending, you know, these people there, just so that we aren't opening it up and then just going, hey, we want the fire department to come, you know, we want to make sure.
Well, I think that's targeted, Leanne. I think that's what Arlo is talking about. Is
okay. I'm
getting
sorry.
Dan Griffey and, you know, those types, right?
Yeah.
All of our legislative reps and, you know, the commissioner and fire chief and all those, and contact them to let them know that that's intimate session would be happening for them, and just have those individuals in there.
Yeah. And I think what I'm asking is, should we make sure that they are returning an RSVP for that?
Yes.
No,
Yes.
Yeah, for sure. And we wouldn't open it to the public. Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of
Getting
what
to that point. Yeah.
So let me ask another question. This is Steve, Richard, I don't know which one. So these sessions are specifically with Richard, you and Libra running these. The board is not attending these sessions, correct?
Correct. I think in the past we've had maybe a board member kind of maybe sit in on one by choice, but it wasn't a requirement. Generally, they haven't been a part of it. No, Libra and I facilitate the whole meeting.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Okay, and then on the next slide, it's a conversation again you all have already started, and it sounds like you have a plan for it, and that's identifying the stakeholder groups and the schedule. The only thing that I would just caution you on, and I'm sure it's at the forefront, is the danger in this is missing a group, or right, some people will feel left out, feel less than. I think particularly thinking about all of your labor groups and what that looks like. We've just in the past, I know that that's been something that sometimes there's some hard feelings around that, and never intentional, right? But just make sure you kind of give that a lot of thought. Otherwise, it sounds like you all have a plan for identifying that. Here's just a slide with some examples of previous districts and what they've identified.
Yeah, just to expand on that thought, we've had specific sessions for our union leadership as well, and just the leadership. That depends on your district, whatever you prefer. That's what you want to be thinking about.
Yeah, I mean, part of the thought was, especially, I think that administrative group is Deanna's, our current superintendent's kind of leadership group is being separated from the building administrators.
Very common, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay, the next slide is kind of just a summary of those things, so we can probably skip through that. I think we've talked about that already. And then here again, sounds like Jackie's already been in communication with Kathy, but these are just 3 links to examples of the flyers, but sounds like with Amanda already has a plan, and so you're ready to go with that. I think we're good here unless there are any questions. Okay, so next slide is about a video. So this is one conversation I don't think I've heard. So we have here some examples. This is again just another promotional technique, not a have to, but certainly could be something that if you're interested in, if you have the desire, the technology, the capacity to do this. Some districts have engaged in creating a promotional video to the position. Yeah, not sure if this is something that's been discussed or of interest, but at least for your consideration.
We have also, the county has requested and is producing a 1-minute, 2-minute promotional video for the school district to appear on the county's website in general. So we may have that available to us to use as well if it's done in time.
Yeah, okay.
And another thing that I've seen is a slide deck instead of a video, and embedding videos with links in the slide deck is another thought. However you all want to do it. I think the truth is, if you just have a front and back PDF promotional flyer, that's generally sufficient, but you can be as fancy and technology oriented as you want. It's up to you.
And then the last slide for me just has to do with the online application. And so I think there's a link here, where we've kind of just done a rough draft of the application, so you can kind of get a sense of what it might look like. And obviously this is 24/7 access, so anyone could access it at any time and go through it as necessary.
I was going to ask if everybody's had a chance to look at that, are there any comments or concerns about the application? I assume you've been able to look at that on your own laptop there. I think with screen sharing, it's hard to share the links, so I think that's our problem.
Well, I could, Jackie, if you're okay, I can share my screen. I think I can show it, if that helps.
I will stop sharing.
Okay. Share my screen. Oh, I think I need permission to, oh, there we go.
Yep, I'm giving you permission now.
You're good. Okay. Can everyone see this? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so 8 pages. The logo looks a little distorted now, but we would work on that. This is just a draft. So pretty basic information kind of to begin with, right? Demographics, about their education, making sure they have the minimum requirements for the position. We certainly
Can we put pronouns on there, please?
Pronouns, yeah, we could do that.
It's sometimes really hard to tell with different names And, you know, like a name like Ashley could be either one. And I would like to know if I'm saying she or her, or if I'm talking about a he or him.
Understood. So I got that noted. Questions about language and memberships, and then obviously their employment experience. And a big thing here, the reason for leaving. And we do ask them to be specific. And this is a very pointed follow-up that we spend time on with candidates who we're looking at screening in. References obviously are key. Background check disclosures. And I think we mentioned this in our initial meeting, but we do an extensive background check with databases nationwide to make sure everything's on the up and up with that. And then obviously this will have the application deadlines and due dates and some other pertinent information.
I
Arla?
thought it looked, oh, sorry.
So I didn't mean to call you out, but I was just thinking you had mentioned before being interested in how applicants would respond to issues or stances on diversity. Would you want that to be on a paper application or in an interview?
I think more for an interview, but I was going to ask this looks fine to me. Is it pretty standard? I was curious, Dana, because you've applied to, you know, superintendent positions. Is this type of application, because it just feels pretty basic, I guess, is what I'm getting at, which is fine if that's kind of what people are expecting. I guess I was surprised to not see, like, I don't know, essay questions. I haven't applied for something like this. So, but if that's more appropriate for like the 2 interviews, then that makes sense to me. I just was curious how this compared to other applications.
I mean, I would assume that a CV is going to be included, right, when any of these folks are applying to this, right, which should have all of their work history, all of those type things. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah, I think we see cover letters as well as a part of that. I think there's kind of 2 schools of thought on this, and I think I've seen on the one being really explicit, right? If there are particular things we absolutely want to hear from candidates, that's one philosophy. I think the other philosophy is kind of the open-ended approach, right? Part of what people sometimes look in a superintendent is how proactive are you? How attention to detail are you? How do you come across? And so are you going to include a cover letter even though we didn't ask for it? Are you going to address some of these issues even though they weren't asked? So 2 schools of thought. We can certainly ask, add a question or 2 if the board feels like that's really critical.
And I was going to say, I've seen that done many times where a district has 1 or 2 things they really would like to see addressed as a separate essay type question. And that can be part of the application if you would like it to do that. If you'd like to do that.
So, and just to chime in, since you asked, Darla, I've seen multiple different, you know, processes. I think the important part of the application process is this kind of application with the CV included. And you guys, I think, because we're with the flyer, we're going to have identified your key attributes that you're looking for, and that flyer might also mention some key challenges that we see for the district in the next few years. And it's typical to anticipate or expect that a candidate would address those things and tell us why they meet those, show those attributes, or why they are ideal to help us with those challenges in their cover letter. I mean, the cover letter should be a little bit more about, this is why I'm the good person, the right person for your district. Sometimes I think some of the places, the question, when some places, some different strategies include some specific questions written to up front, but you get kind of, those tend to be kind of generic white paper kinds of responses that could be that they're a really good researcher too. I think what is intriguing for you guys, and you guys being the board and our district, and me thinking of the future of the district, the pre-interview that Gray and Associates is going to do with top candidates, and that information that they're going to provide with you, I think will provide much deeper insight into the candidates you're considering than answers to some essay questions.
And also, just to be clear, we require a cover letter and a CV as part of the application.
So question for Steve and Richard. What has been your experience with some districts? I know, like, for example, Seattle have started shading certain factors that they believe are identifiers and may feed into unconscious bias. So, for example, names, they black that out so that the hiring committee or panel does not see it and automatically fill in possibly some blanks. And or educational institutions, right? Some of us still have those stereotypes, and I'll include myself in that. If you see someone who went to Rice University and then you see someone who went somewhere else, I don't want to insult anyone, so I won't come up with an example for that, but that you may say, oh, okay, Rice University, wow, I know a lot about them. And again, start filling in blanks with how qualified you think that person is. Do you have experience with any other districts that you've worked with that have said, you know what, we kind of want to remove some things because we really want to base it on the content?
I've certainly heard of that process. I have not been involved in a search where we had the names or institutions blacked out. We'd be happy to do it if you'd like to do it that way. A lot of time talking about bias issues. We had a good discussion about that as part of our process, but it's up to the board how you want to handle it. I don't know, Richard, do you have anything you want to add to that?
No, I'm like you. I've heard the Seattle example in particular, but I have not actually been a part of a search that's utilizing it.
It might be something we want to think about, not necessarily have to decide tonight. We have some time to think about it. That's fine if you want to do it that way.
How does the rest of the board feel about that? And I guess I would want more understanding of what that would look like. Like it would, like Ray and Associates would blank out the names and identifiers like school.
I mean, what names as far as who is applying?
Yes. So for example, I'll use myself as an example. If you saw Nicole Gonzalez, you could probably make some assumptions about where I'm from or my parents are from or what languages I speak or possibly even what religion I am, right? And so what what Seattle Public Schools has done, for example, is yes, they have censored out the Nicole and the Gonzalez. And all you see is, and that's why the pronouns would be important, you would still see that it was a female applying who lived in Belfair. And then if you wanted to look at my universities, you would blank out the 3 universities that I got degrees from, and all you would see were the degrees that I got and what they were in. So again, you don't have a bias of if you're like, oh, she went to Stanford. Well, I can make some assumptions about her socioeconomic background. Instead of just saying what's more important, the fact that she got a degree from Stanford or the fact that she got a degree in whatever it is we're looking for, early childhood education.
Mm-hmm.
If somebody's asking my opinion on how I feel about that, I absolutely do not believe that of myself. And I would hope that the rest of us would not be thinking that way. And so if we're talking about taking out names so that we are not taken, I don't want to say the wrong thing here because I'm sure I can, but I don't think taking their name away, I don't know. I don't have to be the deciding factor here, but I don't think that's important to me to take their name out of it because I don't decide that way, like their religion or their color or whatever it is. That's not how.
Well, that's why it's an unconscious bias because you don't realize sometimes the impact of words or names.
Most offended, but I guess it's up to you guys because I'm not gonna vote on that one. I think that was. I'm kind of
I guess
Sorry.
here's my big question, right? And this would be to Ray and Associates. So out of all of the superintendent searches that you have done, how many have utilized that?
Yeah, I've been involved directly with the board over the last 4 years on about, I don't know, 12 searches. None of them have done that. But we do, 75 searches, 100 searches a year nationwide. I don't know the nationwide stats on that. I could get that information.
Yeah, I mean, it's not an uncommon thing happening in hiring across multiple industries. So it's not like this unheard of thing. I think we've also talked about being committed to making sure that we're looking at a wide range of candidates from many different backgrounds. And I suppose you could make the argument, that we want to keep their names in so that we can see that, but to Nicole's point, we're making assumptions. Just because someone's last name is something doesn't mean that they are Hispanic. It could just mean that they married a Hispanic person, so
I mean,
I think that there are assumptions that can get made and that can help influence whether, we continue with a candidate. And Nicole's just, making the comment, why not just remove those? If their name doesn't matter and where they went to school doesn't matter, then why do we need to see it? And I can go either way. I think it doesn't hurt to have them removed. So, why be resistant to that?
Yeah.
My
So
thing.
I'm not resistant, but are we going to take out where they went to school as well?
I think it's all up for debate right now.
Right. It was just suggestions on their, meaning Ray and Associates, their possible background with it. And again, it's a newer thing that's happening in a lot of areas, even at the state level. So I was just curious if that was something that we are interested in doing. But yes, because again, does it matter where they got their degree from, or does it matter that they got their degree? And are we looking more at their past work experience? And this is not meant to be insulting, Leanna. It's just I think of the same way. If I see one college as opposed to another college, I will admit that I sometimes am like, wow, I know that college is tougher. So if you graduated from there and you finished from there, wow, kudos to you. And if I see another college, I might be like, well, yeah, because it's really not that hard. So I'm using my own bias as an example. I'm not trying to call out anybody else on their bias. I'm saying,
I don't mean it
know.
like that. I don't mean it like that. I feel like when we want a full picture painted, right? A painted picture of someone. And I feel like where you went to school, I think that paints a picture. But I don't think that that's something that I'm not going to ask somebody what their nationality is and what their religion is. And I'm not going to base it on their name. So the name thing, if that's something big for the rest of the group, that's fine. You can do what you want. I don't feel like that's a big important thing. I think where you go to school, I think that paints a picture. And I don't think that's a bad thing to look at of, what was important to them, or what, that maybe one of the questions is, like when you chose your field, whatever the thing is. I don't know. I guess I've never.
So
I didn't think.
Is this something, Steve, we needed to make a call on tonight?
We do not. And I just wanted to add one thing to the conversation. Part of our traditional process is, as I mentioned, for the top 10 or 12 recommended candidates that we bring to you, we will include that 10-minute Spark Hire video. So there'd be a couple ways you could handle that. We could just play the video without a picture. Obviously, you could just hear from the candidate. I would say that it's important to know how potential candidates present themselves. And I don't know the best way to find that out. I am not opposing this idea. I'm just trying to think through how it would work, having never done it this way before.
I mean, and that's to me, right, the body language part, especially with interviewing a CEO type, of how they're presenting themselves, and how they're promoting themselves, if you will, comes into a part of it as they are the CEO of the North Mason School District, is what we're hiring them for, right? With that being said, right, and I'll go back to this part. I'm fine with whichever way that we go with this. I've been involved in other hirings with CTOs, and we've always looked at the whole thing, and I'm really not looking at the point that we're getting the applications as the interviewers, really looking for those fine details. By the time that I'm seeing the application, my assumption is that the educational piece and the qualifications piece, is really what we're paying somebody to go through, right, in my eyes. And that would be, what we're paying Ray and Associates to go through those 100 applications to knock them down to 15. So that we're not even looking at any of those things, right? So, but I'm fine either way.
Yeah, and I appreciate that, Eric. And I didn't mean for us to make a decision tonight, but I will say one other thing is we've talked again about how, and if Nicholas was here, I think he would remind us, we've talked a lot about how we need to rebuild trust in this community.
Agreed.
And so I guess that was another layer here is we can't have the committee say, of course you chose them because they graduated from North Mason High. Of course you chose them because they graduated from South Kitsap. I thought you were going to look further. But if you strip certain information, you're like, they got chosen because they have a degree in this and a degree in this, and because they've worked in these places and these places. So I guess, when you work for the government, you get told it's not always necessarily what you've done, it's the illusion of what you may have done. And so I guess I'm also looking to protect us from accusations of we didn't stretch the net far enough. We relied on nepotism or who knows who. And this could protect us from those types of accusations.
Gotcha. No, I'm tracking. I appreciate that.
I
If I
appreciate
may, I think that
you.
oh.
Sorry, I was just going to say I appreciate you clarifying that. I'm a big picture person, so when I have every chance to paint it the full or the big picture, I just use all of everything I can get, just to paint my picture. But I don't believe it's in a racist or a biased or any other type of way. So that's where I was coming from. But I do appreciate you clarifying that. Thank you, Nicole.
I was just going to say, this is an important question, and we want to be really thoughtful and careful. So we have already talked about planning a study session later in the month after we get the feedback to kind of build the rest of the plan and what the product looks like and what the rest of the steps, finalizing that. So perhaps I could suggest that the board continue to think about that, and Eric can talk more with Steve and Richard and the company, and we can have a more in-depth discussion if needed that you are all prepared for at that November 27th meeting.
I'm good with that too, and I'm also wondering if Eric is able to or Leanna give Nick a call, since I know he dropped off here, and just kind of give him a heads up since I think he missed this piece.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for the discussion on that. I think we're on slide 19, unless there's more discussion for the presentation.
Okay, Jackie, can you get us to slide 19?
All right, I need to start sharing the screen again. Oh. Can you guys see my screen?
No.
Nope.
All right, how about now?
Yeah.
There we go. All right.
All right, moving on to advertising. Regional, we would ask the district to post with WASDA and WASA. I believe those are both free. And so we'll have that ready to go as soon as we finalize the profile and the flyer and start getting the word out. So free advertising is great, and that's a great way to get the word out in the state of Washington. But we'll also be working the phones, and Richard has a lot of contacts in Washington. I know Lieber does, and I still do. So we're gonna work our contacts as well and make sure we cast a wide net and get the word out in the state as well as nationally. So the free stuff is easy. Next page, next slide. Advertising options. We would recommend the AASA site, the Job Flash Package. That's the American Association of School Administrators, that's the Superintendent's Association. Candidates generally look in two places. They look at the search firm websites when they're looking for a job, and they look at AASA. And the Job Flash Package is an extra $200, but that guarantees that job is emailed to 5,000 superintendents. It's continued to be posted on the website, just like the cheaper posting. It's on there for 30 days. That's sufficient amount of time. The other great thing about that is that email goes out to 5,000 superintendents who have, 10,000 or maybe more, maybe less assistant superintendents or other people that would be good candidates for this job. And that's a wonderful way to get the word out to candidates.
I like that option. What does everybody else think? I also, before I said that, I also think would like to see us do the NABSE and ALAS. What does everybody else think?
Can we do them one at a time? Are we okay with the AASA Job Flash Package?
AASA, okay, you want us to look at that first one?
Please.
Sure, I think that's fine. The Job Flash Package. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep, that was a yes for me too.
Okay, so it sounds like we have that one. I think that's a good bang for the buck there. The next one down is another good bang for the buck because it's free. That Education Week newspaper, that's kind of the education newspaper of record. It is widely read. And so that generally would cost you $500, but that's part of our base fee. So that's a good deal also. That's 30 days, which is sufficient. And then Kathy at the home office, she posts these national ads and she staggers them a little bit so we get some overlap, but 30 days in each is wonderful. Okay, moving on to National Alliance of Black School Educators. Interested in posting there?
That would be
Yes.
yes.
Okay, very reasonable cost. I think I hear yes there. So we'll do a National Alliance of Black School Educators. Next one down is Association of Latino Administrators and Superintendents, ALAS.
Yes.
Yes.
For sure.
Yes.
Okay,
Mute was working.
and then Ray and Associates, of course, is free, as I mentioned. So that whole page is 1, 2, 3. That's 5 different ads that will be going out, not counting the state ads. I think that's really sufficient coverage. There are other options on the next slide. I do not recommend them, but if you have a different opinion, please let me know.
I think I like what we got.
Everybody okay with skipping those?
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. Next slide, please. So we do not need to decide this tonight, but we do need to, we would like to have it in time for the draft flyer. So you'll want to be thinking about this in the very near future. And that is, what's your salary range? We recommend that you advertise a range and have that ready for the November 22 draft flyer. It's important for candidates to know what kind of salary they can expect. Now, we have a phrase that says this is the range dependent upon qualifications and experience. That's generally the way we write it up. But it's a good idea to give that range so that candidates will know what we're in for. And so you can see how we've constructed this graph. Typically, the economy is functioning properly. There's generally a 3%, 2 to 3% increase each year for most superintendent positions. And so we've kind of factored that in as an estimate.
But what is the range, like the difference, right? 200 to 215, 200 to 230. What's that total? You know,
Yeah,
space
the breadth of the
that's
range.
like, or that works.
Well, that's the question.
I mean, not, and let me put it this way: not the dollar amount, but the range, right? Is it 15,000? Is it 20,000, 30,000? Right? What is typically do you guys see in your other advertising for other superintendents? What typically do people go with that works?
I think typical is about a $30,000 range from low to high, but it
Okay.
depends on the comfort. It depends on the comfort level of the district.
So
Okay.
they can see, thank you for including Dana's base salary down there in the red, and that's something they can easily look up. So in that vein, if we did, oh, you say it's the 30,000. I was thinking 170 to 230, but that's a 60,000 range. Like 185 to 215. That's like the range of a range you might see.
So if we look at it, right, so for the 2025 through 26, she would be at 200. The Bremerton, right, in knowing that we are going to be in pretty, not, I won't say direct competition, but direct
Right.
competition enough with Bremerton, that we're going to have to be competitive with them with where they're at. That's the only thing that makes me nervous if we go below 200, right?
Mhm.
I think if we were at like the 200 to 230 range, or maybe the, you know, I think that to me, it would, looking at these numbers, because that the Hotchkins school district, right, that's down in Centralia. A lot of these other ones, right, Bremerton's geographically the closest to where we're at. I would be nervous if we're advertising 200, 230, or sorry, 185, right, to 215 or whatever, that somebody will look at Bremerton and go, well, if I want to go to Bremerton, right, I'm just going to go over there because I'm going to get paid more. But
You know, look, watching what goes on around us, I think if you were like, I would recommend the board consider maybe going 200 to 230 as a somewhere in that vicinity.
I was just gonna say, if we start out lower than 200 or even at 200, when they come up on their next percentage hike, it's still not going to look as good if we're starting it underneath the 200. So at that time, if we're only in a, not very long, we could potentially lose them at the end of their contract for their next next hike.
Nicole, you're involved in this a bit. In another district, what are your thoughts?
So yes, I was telling a couple of people, including my boss, the superintendent of Olympia School District, that we were going to be hiring a superintendent. And he asked, how much are you all offering? And I said, I'm not really sure. And he said, well, there's no way you're offering less than 200. I can tell you that. So, and something to add on to what you said, Eric, is, and Dana can probably answer this better, isn't Bremerton going to be looking for a new superintendent?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
we're
that's
like,
fine.
it's not just that they're geographically close to us, they do have more students than us. So the work is potentially a little bit more, but yeah, we're probably going to both be going after the same pool of people.
Mm-hmm.
And you will probably finish before they do because they are just getting started. But I would add a recommendation. If I were writing this, if it were a job for doing the hiring for. I would write a minimum of 200, 200 to 230, and knowing that if the right person comes in, you might even have to consider more than that, but that would be in
Sure.
a comfortable range for us.
What does this look like in our budget? Like if we just said, oh, 230, I mean, don't we have to do more work?
We
Yeah.
have, we have budget work to do, but frankly, I have a contract that's built around some things that don't show in the base salary.
That's
So, this is comparable to my current compensation package. The 200 to 230 would be comparable to that
Okay.
for if it continued for next year. So
Have we all seen Dana's package? What is involved in it?
I don't know if
I mean-
Nicole has, I know.
I have, because I specifically asked Jackie and Dana for a copy of her contract when I started, but I don't know if so. I got that idea from WASDA. Nick didn't attend WASDA last year, so I'm not sure if that's something that even occurred to him to ask for.
Well, maybe if we have a list available to us, just so we can see it, to balance it at some point.
well, and I, you're going to, through this process, if I may, work with Ray and Associates and work with your new hire to craft a contract. And I know, going to some presentations at WASDA and WASDA the last couple of years, there is a trend to kind of simplify and not have those little extra pieces that don't make sense, and just this is the number, and keeping contracts more simple for a lot of really good reasons. And I think that there's some events at this month's WASDA that talk about that you guys could get some really good information on.
And I think you're right. The good part too, Leanna, is we got Nate, who's very well versed in a lot of this, a lot at our disposal.
Yeah. I just didn't know. Never mind. That's great. Thank you, Dana, also for putting that info out there.
Well, it seems like we have a general target of maybe 200, 230. We don't have to make a final decision on that tonight. We can keep talking about it, but I'm glad you're thinking about it and have some good conversation. The next slide also shows some salary comparisons nationally. Washington's a little higher than the rest of the nation. So I think the idea of starting at a minimum of 200, it would be wise if you want to be competitive this recruitment season. Any other comments, questions on salary?
Not from me.
Okay. No questions? Okay, let's move on then. Next slide, please. Another thing you want to be thinking about is candidate travel reimbursement for the final round. You said we're going to have the first round virtual. That's real cheap. That's easy way to do it. For candidates that might be coming from out of state, it can be up to $2,000 by the time you pay travel, hotel, and that kind of thing. So I have seen districts that say we can't afford to do travel. We're not going to pay travel for finalists, but it's important to know up front. And if you are going to pay travel, I have some other questions. So what are your preference? Just to complete that thought. You can't pay for spouse travel. Obviously, candidates will typically bring their spouse. They don't always, if they have a spouse. But it would just be for the candidate. Anyway, what is your thought on travel reimbursement?
I'm okay with it. One thing I wanted to put out there to the board is if any of us have any contact down there at Alder,
Yeah,
I mean, I don't think we're there yet, but that would save us.
I have someone close, so it's not like
Yeah, no, agreed. No,
it
I'm
would
just
be,
saying,
but it would be good to ask now if I can get some vouchers.
agreed, because I just think that, like I said, folks that we talked to said this as well, of that, you know, we're showcasing ourselves, and I think Alderbrook would be kind of a nice showcase to a candidate that's coming.
I'm happy to reach out as well, just through my work contacts. Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds great. That'd be very nice.
And I think we're saying, I mean, based on what we're saying, we do want them to be here. We do want them to travel here for their second interview, and ideally, yeah, they'd be reimbursed for airfare, meals, and the like.
And I definitely think the spouse is being invited.
That's a nice touch.
It is, you know, I know in my world that each candidate of doing that as well, just to kind of be nice.
No, it's part of the picture. If they want to bring them, you know, and they do bring them, and I think that's great. If they don't, I don't think it's against them either, you know, but however the picture gets painted, you know, that would be cool.
So it sounds like we're talking about paying travel expenses for candidates, finalists, and there would be travel expenses for in-state candidates probably. If they're coming from any distance, they would need a hotel. They would have mileage, so there'd be a lesser than somebody flying, obviously, but there could be some expense there. I've certainly seen spouses invited to dinner with the board. That's a nice touch. Also something to be thinking about, not to decide tonight, but do you want to have something formal for the spouse to do? Could there be a tour of the district or something? It could be very informal, as simple as a drive around the district, but something to be thinking about. Looks like we have a new member joining us here, so it's always good to have more people joining the meeting.
Hi.
Hi there. So anyway, you want to be thinking about, yes, we're inviting the spouse. We can't pay for your travel. We'd love to have you be here and join us for dinner. We're going to have a little tour. I mean, be thinking about how you want to structure that. Okay. So important question is, are there district per diem rates that would apply for these travel expenses?
So typically, what do you see?
Yes,
folks follow
we do
GSA?
use the GSA per diem rate. Sorry, Eric, to talk over you, but yes, we do use the GSA per diem rate, and I can talk to Kathy about that.
Okay. No.
You were going down the same road I was.
Perfect. So I assume then that the candidates would submit travel expenses directly to the district and not to Ray and Associates. Is that correct?
Yes, they can just, if they do it to Kathy, then Kathy can submit it to me or submit it to me, whatever's easier.
Okay. Great. Sounds good. Okay, we're ready for the next slide then. So any specific state requirements, we need a superintendent certificate. Is there anything else I'm missing? I've been gone from the state for 12 years, so I'm a little rusty on this one.
Well, so on that question, and just kind of going back to the previous discussion, by state law, it's not required. I mean, the board might prefer that, but if you're, I think what I heard earlier is considering like non-traditional candidates, for example, who might not be coming from public education, might not have the superintendent certificate, but they would be allowed to be in a superintendent role. Unless the board decides, no, we absolutely want someone who has a certificate.
So that's the question.
I think I would like to see a preferred on that one, just like Richard just said. Is it being a preferred quality? Because it sounds like what most people are. Other board members, what do you guys think?
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay, preferred is easy to do.
Yes, sorry, my mute wouldn't go off, but yes, I agree.
Second question on there, are there any other preferred qualities the board would like? Do you want this person to be bilingual? Do you want them to have a doctorate? What are your thoughts?
I'd love to
Bilingual
have someone
preferred.
bilingual. Yeah,
But yeah, definitely the bilingual.
I hear bilingual preferred. What about doctorate?
I don't know. I think it's great if they have that. And I assume they're gonna list it, and that's something we'll think about, but I don't know about making it preferred.
I think that's a nice.
Okay, I'm hearing that we're not going to have doctorate preferred. Is there anything else? Do you want teaching experience preferred, principalship experience preferred, superintendent experience preferred? I mean, you could phrase that in a number of ways.
personally, I would like to see teaching and principal experience, just so they know what it's like in the trenches.
Yes, I agree with you. I like to see.
I
teachers
was gonna say the same.
build an
Thank you.
admin.
Yeah, I definitely, I think it should be preferred because I definitely at least want to know that, that being up in the front is important to me too. So I think I preferred on that one.
Okay. So question number 3, would you be willing to offer a contract to a finalist that would need to obtain licensing in Washington? Richard's probably more up on the specifics of this than I am right now. Richard, how would that work?
Well, I guess we need a yes or no question first. Our response, I would say, is that something the board would consider? Because there's potential delays, obviously, with that you can't always predict.
What's
Is this
the
How does
specifically a
that
superintendent
process?
certificate? Like
Well,
what
I
kind
think-
of like?
I guess it goes back to our conversation about the certificate, which again is not required. And so if we only have it listed as a preferred quality, and let's say someone's coming from the business sector, right? So they might not have public education experience, and that's the candidate, so they wouldn't have a superintendent certificate. If the board is okay with that, they can still serve in that capacity. So there actually wouldn't be any licensing requirements.
would that be dangerous to do that and then offer them a contract and then something happen where I don't think that they wouldn't be able to get licensed in Washington, but what if something was held up for so long? Is there something that's dangerous there for us?
Let me ask that in a different way that they may.
Yeah, maybe you can do that.
What typically do you see from other districts that you've seen? Which way do they go with this? Is it that a license is required but not mandatory upon start, but required within 6 months or a year or what have you? What do you typically see?
Well, what I see is that if you list superintendent certificate preferred, you're signaling that you would be willing to consider a non-traditional candidate.
Okay.
And generally, most districts say superintendent certificate required because they're not willing to consider a non-traditional candidate.
Gotcha.
But that door is open in Washington, that door is open in Arizona. It's up to you.
So you wouldn't run a risk in terms of them not being able to do it because it's not by statute or requirement. It would just be a preference of the board. So if the board is willing to forego that as a requirement, which sounds like they have, you are listing it only as preferred, it really would be a non-issue.
Okay.
So just so I'm understanding, so it's not a requirement in Washington to have like a state license for superintendent. Is that what you're saying?
Correct. So like you can
Okay.
you don't need a superintendent certificate. Let me put it this way. You don't need a superintendent certificate to serve as a superintendent, which
In Washington state.
in Washington state, which
And
is a little
how-
bit,
And that's not usual, is what you're saying. Most superintendents have a certificate here.
So yeah, I would say they do, not because it's
Okay.
required, but a couple reasons. One, it's additional education. Often, if you do have your superintendent certificate, some districts pay an additional. It's like having your national boards or your
Okay.
doctorate. There's
That's what I
incentive
went.
for it. Yeah, but in terms of it being required, it is not required in our state.
So it sounds like the answer to question 3 is that you are willing to offer a contract to a finalist that would possibly want to get a certificate in the future but didn't have one at hiring time. Correct?
Correct.
Okay.
I believe Arla, Nicole, Leanna.
I guess I'm a little confused. So, and I might have just like zoned out. So I don't mind if a candidate doesn't have superintendent experience because people need to start somewhere. I don't know how comfortable I am with someone not having a superintendent certificate. I feel like not having the experience yet is okay because people need first opportunities, but a certificate at least gives us some peace of mind when it comes to they have an idea of what the job entails and they've been given some PD and knowledge on what this is going to take.
Well,
I think.
I was just going to say we partly answered question 3 when we answered question 1 when we said superintendent certificate was preferred because you left the door open to maybe a non-traditional candidate, or it could be somebody that maybe had a business or military career and then was a teacher and a principal for a while. They just haven't finished the certificate. There's a lot of different tracks that could take, but it is an important question because I'm guessing 95% of the superintendents in Arizona and probably in Washington have a superintendent certificate. Many districts say we want somebody that is a superintendent certificate. It's common for that to be listed that way.
Yeah, I guess I'm exactly where Nicole's at. Is I'd like the opportunity to be there, but ultimately I would like them to have their certificate.
Do you want them, Eric? Are you saying that you want them to have the certificate before the contract, or be able to give them the contract and then get the certificate?
Be able to obtain the certificate within a designated time.
Okay.
Yes.
And will we know ahead of time?
And I would.
You know what I'm saying?
So it doesn't have to be ahead of time. Let's say we were poaching somebody from Michigan. It wouldn't have occurred to them working in Michigan for 20 years to get a Washington State superintendent certificate. But now this opportunity arises and they're the best candidate. I'd like to give them some time to, because they're not reciprocal. The only states that we're reciprocal with, at least with teaching certificates, is Ohio and Wisconsin. So they would need to, even if they had a superintendent certificate in Michigan, it's going to take them time. I'd be willing to grant them that grace period.
Yeah,
right. I was asking, are we giving them a time limit, or are we?
How long does it take to obtain something like this? Because we're interviewing them, they're turning in applications in January. We're interviewing them, I think, the next month or in March or I already can't remember the timeline. I guess I'm curious how it depends on how far along, if they haven't even considered it and would have to start from scratch, then I guess that's a concern to me that okay, you don't have the certificate and it would take you like a year and a half potentially to even get it.
I think
I don't know.
Yeah, I think to be on the safe side, I think you want to plan that it would take at least a year, right? So if I would say you'd have to put it in part of negotiating the contract, that within a year of being hired, if that's what the board desires, the superintendent will attain their superintendent certification. Because you're right, they're going to have to find a program, go through the program requirements and do those things. And it's not something obviously that happens in a short amount of time.
That's exactly.
And I guess, but I guess in that scenario, my preference would be that they already have one, because that's just me. I'm willing to go whichever way we go here, but I feel like I don't want them to be going to school at the same time that they're trying to learn about North Mason.
I think my big thing early is is Nicole's example. Is if we hire somebody from Michigan, right, that has a certificate in Michigan,
Experience, yeah.
they're
in
gonna
another
have
state.
to go through that process here. And if we just say, hey, we want a year, right, you to acquire your Washington State license, right? You already have your Michigan license, but within a year, I want you to get your Washington one. Well, that's kind of what Nicole said it really well, and I that's where I kind of agree with her thought process there.
And I get that. I think a way to phrase that would be like, we're looking for people with this certificate or like equivalent, or an equivalent certificate or equivalent experience. I guess the way that the question is phrased here is the board willing to offer a contract to a finalist that would need to obtain licensing? I think we've answered that. I think we've said, yes, we're willing to offer a contract.
Yes, I agree. Yes.
I'm sorry, can I just ask, what does it mean if they do have a license in Michigan, superintendent certificate in Michigan? What does it mean for them to go above and beyond to get one in Washington? What's the difference?
That would be through OSPI, I believe. So I don't know the requirements. I mean, there may be some things that kind of carry over, but for the most part, it's like a whole new tract. Because each one.
Or is it
Can you
a
explain that
test?
a little bit more, Nicole?
So, it's not, did Dana go offline? Because it's not
Yeah,
necessarily
we had
like,
another meeting start at 6 o'clock tonight, so
Okay,
our
so
levy meeting.
I don't know if it would be under WASA or what, but I know like for OSPI, you come in with your full teaching certificate, you know, all that college, all the testing, the certificate from another state. OSPI doesn't recognize it. They only recognize it from Ohio or Wisconsin. So essentially, you have to quote unquote start over again. You don't necessarily start all the way from the beginning. Some of your classes carry over, and there's certain allowances they're willing to give you because, yeah, they understand that you did it. And it looks like Richard looked up some stuff. So not all of it is done all over again, but there are just Washington specific things.
Yeah, so those are the requirements. Like you said, all certification for education, teacher, principal, superintendents runs through OSPI. So those are the requirements. But again, just to be ultra clear, and this is counterintuitive because this is not true of teachers or principals, but it is true of superintendents, and it's kind of hard. It racks your brain a little bit when you're thinking that that's the highest position in a school district, but certification is not required. So I should probably just verbatim, this is the language out of OSPI as well.
Can I ask a question for clarification? If we ask for somebody to be licensed, do we have to say licensed in Washington? We can say licensed and then able to obtain the Washington State license within 1 year. Is that totally too much, or maybe that was what somebody was saying, but I might have lost that.
Since it's not a state requirement, it's what you all decide, because it would be your requirement as the North Mason School District Board. From the state, anyone, as long as they're vetted and you're like it says there, right? Certification isn't required for the superintendentship, so you could offer it to anyone. Now, if you're not comfortable with that because having a certification is important, then those would be requirements that you would impose, and you would decide what those requirements would be.
And Nicole, is that what you were saying? Were you saying it like you were comfortable with somebody without a license because they're not needed in certain areas? Or I might have missed part of that and mixed it up with somebody else. Does that make sense?
I'm not sure if it did. I believe what I said was that I think we should hire someone with a superintendent's license, but if they don't yet have it, give them the time to obtain it. The other thing I think I mentioned that Eric had also hit upon was if they have a license in another state, yeah, then we want to allow them time to transfer that over. Don't want to say if you don't have a Washington State superintendent certificate,
And
that
I'm-
you're not good here. I guess the other thing is like we want quality, right? Like
let me just can I interject real quick, because I think Richard posted something in the chat that I also found online. I don't think it's going to be a huge hardship if they have a master's degree and they already have had a state superintendent approval in another state, or the 3 years of superintendent experience. It just looks like it's an online application. So I don't think it's going to be a huge like hardship. That's what I was seeing on the OSPI website as well, that they can apply for the substitute admin out of state, and
Yeah,
they don't have to go through a whole program.
Right, that's if they come from out of state with a certificate, but we're going to have some Washington grown folks that don't have a superintendent certificate because, as he's mentioned, they're not required. What we need to decide is if we want to require that. And I think ultimately we should, even if we grant them the grace to earn it because it's not state required, but we're going to want quality people here, people that are willing to go through the steps of learning how to be a superintendent. Just because you work for a superintendent doesn't mean you know how to be one. And so I think we should really push for having that qualification. That kind of seems like a super important one. If there's a certificate out there that shows them and teaches them how to be a good superintendent, why wouldn't we want that?
Well, it seems like we've kind of answered the question with some flexibility. If you want to stick with number one, the number one bullet there, superintendent certificate preferred. And then if you answer number 3, is the board willing to offer a contract to finalists that would need to obtain a license? The answer is yes. You can still make sure that they get a certificate in a timely manner as part of that contract negotiation. I think that's what I hear the board saying.
Yeah, I think we should move on.
Yep.
I think I've got my questions answered for now. We can keep fine tuning this as we go. And that brings me to the very last slide, which is the end. And unless there's any other questions, that's all we have.
did we Jackie, were you going to send out the request for us to set up our meeting times with Ray and Associates?
They're gonna.
Or
They're going to do that for you.
Okay.
I gave
They're
them
gonna
your
call us.
email address. I gave them your school email address, and I gave them all your cell phone numbers. They will be getting a hold of you.
Okay.
I need from the board your community advisors or your community people that you would like to see. I need to get some examples from you, like how many meetings are you guys thinking of having? And I will send you guys a follow-up email after the meeting that
Of what you need from
Okay.
us and the deadline.
well, the deadline is right now as soon as possible because these meetings are coming up here on the 18th and the 19th. So we need to give these families and the community enough notification. And then also we need to have some invites made up and all of that. So there's a lot to do. So I need you guys to send it to me as soon as possible.
Yes, that would
just
be
sent-
good to note because Nick's not here. He's not hearing this, but that's, I mean, just put it in the email would be.
Yeah, and Arla's going to give them a call after this, but I will send you guys all an email.
I think
Okay.
Leanna's gonna give him a call. Do you guys want to? I'll put in the chat what I emailed Jackie, just in case, just to save time with these are just the groups I thought of, and so yeah, any more? It's kind of like a random long list, but I just put it together. And
Did you add the daycares in there?
ooh, no, that's a good one.
I really, Christ Lutheran, I know there's a bunch of teachers that have been there for a very long time. And I know they were all excited about like wanting to have input. And I said, you know, I bet that daycares would be a good idea to put on that list. So
I'm gonna add. That makes me think of a couple more ones.
yeah.
We need, agreed.
Yeah.
Especially the ones that are accredited toward preschool. if we have to cut off at a certain point because there's so many. There could be like home ones that are small, but they're not accredited to go towards the school. They're not held by any type of state standard or anything. So, I mean, there is, but
Yeah, no, the community group, the community engagement folks, the folks on the levy committee, on the bond committee, right? It's yeah, you've done. I like what you got on here. It's a good start.
yeah. Is this also like the people from The Voice, the group? Is that in here? Like the special?
I thought
few
about that, but I wasn't sure how like organized they are. And then I also just wasn't sure, you know, so, like The Voice is more like, yeah, we are going to invite the whole community also, like in like a broad meeting.
Mhm.
And so I don't know that we need to like, I want them to be invited. Yes. So I guess I would add them, but I wasn't thinking like special invite, make sure you're there. Cause it's
Well,
kind of
they've
made
been
up
around
of
for a long time, but a lot of them are on a lot of this
other
these
stuff.
here.
Well,
Yeah.
it's the Arts and Laura's and
Yeah. Oh, the scholarship.
Oh, the
foundation.
chamber, is the chamber on here?
I
but-
did put
so-
the
Oh,
chamber.
you did.
Yeah, so all of you guys, instead of doing it right now, because we still
sorry.
have Steve and Richard on there, send me the email overnight tonight, tomorrow, while you guys are thinking of it. But Steve and Richard, with the survey, is that who gets those results? So are you guys giving me the survey and I'm sending it out? Are you guys sending it out? Can you explain a little bit more on the survey?
Yeah, we provide the link to you, and then you would just post that on your website or wherever you want to publicize this thing. And then all the
Okay.
results come to us and we compile them.
So
You just need to
Awesome.
publicize it.
and then
Perfect.
did everybody review the qualities, those 31 qualities that are in there? And is there anything we wanted to add to that? Because that's something I
What
think
slide number was that?
over.
I had that open. Shoot.
Could I
Here
ask
they are.
could I ask a question of you, Jackie? What Arla made right here is a beautiful list. And then the list of those qualities, because we're going to get out of this meeting pretty soon, would you be willing to put this list and then the quality list in an email, just so Arla's not sending it out to us and then we're not accidentally replying to 3 different people and making that a problem? So if you did that, we can just see it. I took a picture and I have it, but Nick doesn't have it specifically right here. So if we had that out, and then I'll make sure that he looks at this list. And then if we had the 31 quality list in that same email, and then we can all just get back to you on that.
Well, I have a question about this survey. Did you just want us to take that 31 quality survey, or are
Well,
you asking, do we need to edit it or add to it?
So you will get a link. The 5 board members, the only people that get a special link to the survey, because we want to make sure we get your 5 surveys returned. You'll get that, and then you'll have a chance to do it at that time. And then we will break out those results separately, school board, and then all the other groups. My recommendation would be that you not add anything to the survey, but when you get the stakeholder input, you'll be looking at other factors that probably aren't included in the survey. And then when you make the final list of the top 10 or 12 that you're going to put in the brochure that we're going to screen against your ideal candidate profile, that's your chance and a good opportunity to add, okay, we're going to add this item that wasn't mentioned in the survey,
Okay.
that kind of thing. That's the way I would recommend you do it.
Okay, that makes sense.
Okay, so what were you asking me to do, Leanna?
If this awesome list that Arla just put on here, if you copied it into an email and sent it to us and said, do you have anything to add to this? I know that Nick is not seeing this list. And then this way Arla's not sending it out to us, and then we're not.
I wasn't planning on sending it out.
I
Yeah.
didn't think so.
Yeah.
I've already emailed Jackie mine, so
Oh, okay. And then I can send this to Nick, but I just thought it might be, and then you would have a connection of people just getting back to that one email, but you totally up to you.
So I'm sending the copy of the list that Arla just put on the notes.
Just like, yeah. And I guess that other 31 thing, we already took care of that. That was I thought there was another list. I'm sorry.
The 31 qualities you guys had a chance to look at. You guys are all good with that.
Yeah. I think that you said that that's coming in a link to do the survey, right?
Correct. Yes, we'll send you that
Okay.
link.
Yep. Okay. And
I
so
need to head out now, guys. Are we almost? Can we wrap
Yep,
up?
we're done. I'm done. Is
Yeah, I
everybody
got it.
else all good? Because I'm going to
Yep.
Thank you
adjourn.
guys so much.
Thank you. We are adjourned at
thank
7
you. Have a
o'clock,
good night.
Thank you,
and our
everyone.
next board meeting is November 25th at 6:30 in the boardroom. Oh, 5 o'clock actually.
Yep. 5:30.
5:30. Yep.
Yeah.
Sorry about
All right.
you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you guys so much. That was a wonderful presentation.